There's a lot of rabbit holes here. I'm going to tell you right now, Marlin, there's more rabbit holes than Alice in Wonderland. We're going to see the Mad Hatter and a whole lot more, I think, by the time this is all said and done.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Comstock channel. I'm Marlin Bohling with you. It's always a pleasure to have you on board, and we'd love to talk with you about all things ag-related, ag market-related, what have you. And today is no different. We're going to get to a very important topic here in a second. In the meantime, I want to remind you, make sure you like these videos, subscribe to the videos by clicking on that bell icon down below. That way we can let you know every time we update with a new episode. And make sure you share these videos with others as well as we continue to grow our audience out there. And well, it's especially important that you share today's video, and we'll explain why here in just a second. Okay, I've got Brian Winnekins on with me today, and he is the owner, I believe, and also the farm director at WRDN Radio. He's based in Durand, Wisconsin. And Brian happens to also be a past president of NAFB, so it's an honor to have you back on and chat with you one-on-one here. You kind of broke an important story. I don't know if you were the one to break it, but you're one of the few out there that have been actively talking about a story about a poultry processing company or feeding company that has gone bankrupt and left tons of farmers in the lurch in the upper Midwest. If you could, can you give us some background on this and what is going on here? This sounds like a very complicated story, and it could have real widespread implications all over the country.
Yeah, it is, Marlin, and thanks for having me. There's a lot of rabbit holes that we can go down this, but basically the company was Pure Prairie Poultry. Say that 3 times fast. And basically, this company has been having some issues, financial issues, really, from what I can determine in talking with farmers since last year. They became more severe this year in the spring, and basically by September, it was the house of cards was falling apart. From what I can determine and what I've been seeing in some of the financial reporting and some of the financial publications, and that we're kind of covering some of this as well, is in September, the company did declare bankruptcy in Minnesota. That's where they're based out of, Fairfax, Minnesota. They declared bankruptcy, but the bankruptcy was objected to by their creditors. And basically, when you looked into the financials, there was no way that the company could ever possibly try to stabilize the situation because of such heavy negative cash flows, and they just really didn't have the cash in the bank. And so the bankruptcy was denied in late September, and then basically around September 30th, thereabouts, give or take a day, was when the company basically said, we're just walking away. And they abandoned all of their growers in Wisconsin, Minnesota, and Iowa. Simple as that.
And that's despite the fact they already had the birds in possession in their houses, right?
Yeah, all of these birds, these flocks are in big poultry barns, and depending on how these contracts were, either the farmer would just order feed and fuel from their local feed and fuel distributor and the company pay for it, or the farmer might pay for it and then be reimbursed from the company. As one farmer put it, Brian, I'm kind of just like a landlord. I have the barn. They're paying me for the use of the barn. I take care of the birds, but they provide all of the other stuff. And then they're, the feed, the fuel, and that sort of thing. And then they're paid bonuses, and they're paid for raising the birds. And so part of this is from what a couple of farmers have told me is that when the company basically notified them all of our contracts are done, you're on your own, they gave no guidance on what to do with these birds, because technically the birds are property of the company or the creditor. So their creditors, technically those are their birds. There was no guidance given whatsoever, and they just said, you're not going to be getting feed, you're not going to be getting fuel, we're not paying for it, we're not going to reimburse you, you're on your own.
So if you're maybe a feed mill, what do you do with 100,000 birds? I mean, they're not set up for that.
Yeah, I mean, you can look at it where the feed mill isn't shipping any more feed. The fuel co-op isn't shipping any more fuel, LP, to keep, because you need that in these operations. So, the banks that provided loans to the company, well, technically they're their birds. Shouldn't they be paying then to maintain the birds? I mean, who's supposed to do this? And that's been the crux of this now in the state of Iowa. Well, the state of Iowa, they're, and I think there's still litigation going on, but they were able to at least get a court order where the state of Iowa is feeding the flocks. I want to say about 1.3 million birds. There's a lot of different reports on that. In Minnesota, I don't think it was a lawsuit. I think it was something in place that they had where some of the birds are being fed, some of the flocks are being euthanized. In Wisconsin, there's nothing. According to the Wisconsin Department of Agriculture, what they sent me was due to statute, the statutes and the laws, the only way we can take over a flock is if there's a disease issue, and that's it. So in Wisconsin, there's nothing. There's absolutely nothing. When I pressed on, well, what about animal welfare? The response from the Wisconsin Department of Ag was that's a local issue. That there's county humane officers. That's where this has to go through. And some of the producers that I talked with said in one county, in Buffalo County, that they were like, well, we don't know what to do. So there's been a huge dropping of the ball here, so to speak, especially in Wisconsin. And it's led to most of these birds, not all of them, but most of these birds have not been fed as of Friday for 9 days. As of last Friday, it was up to 9 days. So do the math. Now there was a couple of farms that, okay, they may have been financially able to do something. This might have been just a smaller part of their farm. They were paying $20,000 a week for feed, but at some point they've just said, we're not doing that anymore. We're going to destroy our business and our equity in our farm if we keep doing this. So they also started selling these birds for $1 to anyone and everyone.
$1?
$1. Oh yeah, get as many chickens as you want for $1.
Okay, so all right, if that's the case, now this leads us into a very dangerous part of the situation here. So you're thinking every Tom, Dick, and Harry can come in and drive on the farm
and they can
drive off with these chickens that have been, in these containment houses all the time. And there's a reason that they're in containment houses. Explain what the risk is now.
Well, there's obviously biosecurity risks, and I mean the biggest reason is, of course, you've been covering this, and anyone associated with agriculture has been covering this. The H5N1 virus. Some people call it the bird flu. I don't like to call it that, but it's the H5N1 virus, and it's spread by migratory birds, and it can devastate poultry flocks in an instant. I mean, once one gets it. So like, for example, even in Wisconsin, let's say one of these farms had a couple of birds come down with H5N1, the entire flock is euthanized. The farm's quarantined, the entire flock is euthanized for they don't want it to spread to other poultry barns. Not only that, but they don't want it to spread to dairy cattle, which has happened now in the United States. Wisconsin does not currently have a dairy herd with H5N1. We have zero. Well, now with this, you've had people, I mean, we're talking north of 100,000 birds potentially being sold, up to maybe even 160,000. Really, if I could do all the math, anybody could come and get some. Give us $1, and because the farmers are so desperate, they don't have any choice at this point. And so the concern that I've had, and the concerns that even the poultry farmers, they've had said, we are, and they do ask people when they're leaving, but are they going to be honest about it really? But the concern is these birds have gone to all over the state of Wisconsin. One farm I was at, there were Minnesota license plates. Look on social media, there's people going, well, I'm from Illinois, I'll come and get some birds. I'm from Iowa, I can come and get some birds. This is going all over. We're on the Mississippi Flyway. It's migration time. Are we opening ourselves up to a massive H5N1 outbreak, not only in Wisconsin, but across the upper Midwest that could continue to spread? And that is a serious issue. There's also an environmental issue, though. And this is where, please, I tell everyone, and I tell your viewers, please don't blame the farmers here on this. Because, okay, the other option is How do you humanely euthanize these things? And they've been receiving nothing. There's a few ways to do it, because from what I've been told, the company didn't give any guidance again of how to do it. What? Let them starve, a slow, cruel death? Use a 12-gauge shotgun, I guess? But you have 100,000 birds. How environmentally friendly is it if your barn has 100,000 birds, Marlin, and you're just going to now bury them in the backyard or in the back 40? Again, there's that could cause other disease issues. And I guess that's where, for me, and as a reporter, and I and you've done this for many years, you're not supposed to get emotionally attached. You're not supposed to be emotional about it. And but it's very hard for me, even as a reporter or as a resident of the state of Wisconsin, or as just frankly a human being, that the state of Wisconsin, all they can do is say, here's a voucher for mental health and here's a sheet of paper for potential financial assistance. Really?
What bothers me is all these poultry farmers have spent so much money and so much time and so many resources trying to protect those flocks from H5N1 or whatever hazard is out there that could be brought in from, like you say, migratory birds. They try and protect them from that. They avoid exposure with that. I'm thinking a lot of these people probably just come up there and try and get a small lot, and they want to put them in the backyard because they're cute and they'll get earthworms in the backyard. They're totally clueless, aren't they, about the
And that's
risk
the
of a deal
concern.
like
And that's the concern. And you know, in Wisconsin, we do have the livestock sighting laws. It doesn't matter if you have one bird in your backyard or you're a big farm. You must register your premise with the Wisconsin Livestock Identification Consortium, so that if there is a disease outbreak, we kind of find out where it started and where it could spread and all of that. Okay, so now you have how many people, if they want to keep these, do they even know about that law? Most municipalities, I will tell you, many municipalities have these ordinances where you're allowed to have 4 chickens in your backyard. They don't put in the ordinance that you must be registered with the Wisconsin Livestock Identification Consortium. Part of it's because they don't know. They don't realize that. And then the person with the backyard flock may not know. And so that's been something that we've been trying to, I've told our city council here in Durand, you have this ordinance, do you have this in there? Well, no, we don't. Well, you better put it in, because there's a danger here of not only the poultry industry in western Wisconsin, but the dairy industry too. There's more to it than just those 4 little chickens in your backyard that you think isn't going to cause an issue. It could. And that's the concern about this. And it's, and the other part of this, Marlon, they've invested, a lot of these farmers have invested a lot of money. Now a few of the farms, they're hurting, but they own everything. They don't have, the barn's been paid for many years. They maybe built this in 2000 or, farther back, whatever. There are other farms that built these new facilities when this company received this big loan and grant from USDA a few years back. They built these barns as part of this new company, or this company, and they don't know what they're going to do, because none of it's paid for. I mean, or, one tenth of 1% of that loan to build that multi-million-dollar facility. And now they're out. They're totally out. I talked to one farmer on Saturday, and I asked him, I said, how you doing? He's like, well, I have $300 to my name. Now what? He goes, but I've got these big payments coming. Now what do I do? I can't blame. Yeah, exactly. And there's FSA loans and there's other things coming up. What's he going to do? And that's just for the farm. What about personally? Really?
And I keep thinking, I worked for a long time in North Carolina, and that's a big poultry state. I just wonder, is it possible that something like this could happen in other parts of the country as well?
Sure. Why not? Why couldn't it? And let's look at Iowa. And this is something that, at least in my opinion, and again, my opinion is worth a 5-cent cup of coffee, I guess. But okay, right now, Iowa files a lawsuit. Okay, so they're stabilizing the situation. This company walks away. The financial institutions don't care. That gave them the money, even though they're their birds. Who's paying for it? The taxpayers are bailing them out. So this is, why can't it could happen in North Carolina. It could happen in South Carolina. It could happen anywhere with any of this stuff. And it begs the question, why isn't any of these companies, not just in poultry, dairy, beef, corn, any of these not even big companies, co-ops, whatever, that work together, that have, okay, you're growing stuff for me, or you're doing stuff for me, or you're selling me, you're bringing me your corn and then I'm selling it, whatever. Any of these organizations, why don't these companies have bonding? They should have a bonding. This company should have had bonding to say, well, we have a $20 million bond that you have to pay for first, and it's just sitting there. And then if something like this happens, it goes south. Okay, we got $20 million now to work from to stabilize the situation. Now, I get it. In some of these cases, $20 million is only going to be a week, if that. I get that. But at least we have a way to stabilize the situation and then try to figure out where to go from here. Well, right now, you have nothing going on in Wisconsin other than let's sell chickens for $1. Iowa, the taxpayers are going to have to pay every day for these 1.3 million chickens, I think it is. And in Minnesota, the taxpayers are paying for euthanization and feeding some of them. And the company and remember, that USDA loan of $39 million is guaranteed. So the banks aren't nothing. They're going to get their $39 million. And meanwhile, the average Joe has to pay for it and has to try and pick up the pieces here. Can it happen anywhere? Yes. Will it happen anywhere? Unless there's fundamental changes in how some of this stuff works to where there's accountability. Yeah, it'll because they know. Well, if we go belly up, well, the state's going to have to. We know the state's going to do something. Wisconsin, I guess, is the exception. We know the state's going to do something because they want to protect their agriculture. So we know that they're going to do something. And you know what? Wisconsin will change these laws and where they're going to have something in it. But again, it's going to be fall back on the state, fall back on potentially USDA. We don't have to have anything in place because we can just fall back on them if it goes south. I think that's a mistake. Again, but my opinion's worth a 5-cent a cup of coffee, I guess. And I'm sure that, some of the bigger operators, or, if there's lobbyists or whatever, they'd be like, oh, we're going to fight that. It would ruin the business or ruin the industry, or it's too much for it. Well, okay. Look what's happening right now in the state of Wisconsin. How good is it for agriculture for this state or for agriculture across the board to have potentially 160,000 birds starving and dying a slow death? And the people that did this get to walk away.
So, Brian, let me ask you this. Where do you see the dominoes falling? Because it's not going to stop here. It's going to have a domino effect throughout the local economies in those rural communities out there. Where do you see it going?
I don't know. I asked our state senator, what's the damage to Wisconsin's agricultural reputation? He goes, well, I don't know where this will go. I don't know. I mean, some of these co-ops probably have some pretty big bills that are unpaid. Will they get anything for it? I don't know. But it could cause, some ripple effects. For us, it's I don't know how bad economically it will be, because remember, dairy is still king here. It's not like North Carolina. Let's say the biggest processor in North Carolina did exactly what's happening here. Well, North Carolina is going to have some pretty serious issues. I think there will be some dominoes, but I don't know if it'll be. I don't believe that there'll be co-ops are going to go out of business or a feed mill is going to go out of business because of it. Because I think part of this was they stopped shipping. They're like, we're not giving you anything more until we get paid, which I don't blame them. They have to protect themselves.
Kudos to you on covering this right from the early stages of when the story was just breaking. And thanks for staying on top of it. And I have to give you high fives for being one of the big voices out there that are putting this story out in the public eye. I assume that you're doing more reports and you're going to keep updating as we go here. How would our viewers around the country be able to keep up with this? Do you have like a website or something, or what?
So we do stream online. Our website's realcountry1430.com. It's REEL as in fishing reel. realcountry1430.com. So we will, if I have audio interviews, and I do have some on our podcast right now, you just go to the podcast page. So I actually talk with one of the farmers, Terry Fila. He's been one farmer that has been very I don't want to say outspoken, but has been willing to talk, and you can hear his story personally, and it's an incredibly sad story of what he had to do, and the lack of any type of help for him when he was trying to do the right thing. If I want to properly humanely euthanize these birds, and everyone just said, well, there's nothing we can do. So that's our website, and I also have some other interviews with like our state senators there now, and you just go to the podcast page, you'll be able to scroll down, see all the different ones. I do have at least a request in to do an interview with the Wisconsin Department of Agriculture. And I will tell you, Marlin, that there are about 4 or 5 farm broadcasters across 4 states that we're all trying to work different angles of this and trying to find out more. I mean, I will tell you one, in some cases, they're calling their state Department of Ag and they're saying, here's what's happening in Wisconsin. And they're like, oh, we don't have anything in place. So there's a lot of different moving pieces here. But I do have request for the Department of Ag. I have a request in the Wisconsin governor as well. And then also I will be talking with Senator Tammy Baldwin and Minnesota Senator Amy Klobuchar here coming up later this Monday afternoon when we recorded this. At least that's the plan here. And we'll just keep following it. I did talk with Terry today, the farmer that we had on air on Friday. He's doing as well as can be expected. Him and his wife had to they said, Brian, we had to stop on Sunday for a little bit because they were so stressed out, and they watched the Packer game, and thankfully the Packers didn't lay an egg, and just relaxed a little bit. But she's working in the barn again. Some folks still have 40,000 birds yet. He said they still look that the birds are hanging in there, and they're doing okay. And one of the things that I learned, and obviously this, I'm more of a dairy guy, but when I was at one of the farms, I said, why are all the lights off? And we said it keeps them very inactive. It slows everything down, and that's because they're trying to extend things so that the lights were off in the barn, and so it's something that we'll just keep following. And yeah, I mean, I know Congressman Van Orden. He's from the 3rd District. He's on the House Ag Committee, and I did have that interview's posted. He did talk to Chairman Thompson at that farm visit last Thursday on the phone. And what he told me was that the House Ag Committee would open up an investigation into the company and USDA for how did they determine that this company deserved nearly $7 million grant and a $39 million loan, guaranteed loan, to reopen up this processing plant and kind of start everything. And this is all from the pandemic when we had lack of processing. And so, they have that meat and poultry processing program through USDA to try to expand this, processing capabilities. They want to know, 1, how did you guys determine this? And 2, where did all this money go? So there's some things happening that will follow as well. There's a lot of rabbit holes here. I'm going to tell you right now, Marlin, there's more rabbit holes than Alice in Wonderland. We're going to see the Mad Hatter and a whole lot more, I think, by the time this is all said and done.
Oh, Brian, thanks for being the canary in the coal mine on this issue here and causing awareness to this. So hopefully people around the country will kind of put their antenna up now and pay attention to what's going on. Very important work you're doing. Thanks for sharing. That's Brian Winnekins. He is with WRDN Radio. He's based in Durand, Wisconsin, but he's covering a very important event that could have wide-reaching implications. So you might want to check out his reports coming up, and he'll keep you updated on this ongoing situation. Brian, all the best to you and everybody affected up there. Thanks for all the help. That'll do it for this episode. Thanks again for joining us. Make sure you click that bell icon down below so we can let you know when we have the next episode out there. For producer Brianne Hendrickson, I'm Marlin Bohling. We'll catch you next time right here on the Comstock Channel. Futures trading involves risk. The risk of loss in trading futures and/or options is substantial, and each investor and/or trader must consider whether this is a suitable investment. Past performance is not indicative of future results.